I'm not bombing. It's they don't get me, man, because I'm a girl and they hate me and my vagina.
Aussie comedian Sarah Young. Hello, Sarah.
Hey.
How are you?
Hello, how are you, Brian?
I'm very well. Thank you very much. So I'm bringing you on because you sent us a message. And I guess, you wanted to talk about this sort of orthodoxy in the comedy sphere, I guess you could say. So I'll start by asking you some questions, Sarah. How did you get involved with comedy?
I got involved with comedy after trying every other sort of artistic pursuit in an attempt to avoid doing comedy because I wanted to be a comedian so bad. I tried being a musician first. I tried being an actor first. And so when all of those things collapsed, I was no good. I went to a couple of comedy clubs, just sort of bit the bullet and thought I'll just watch. At least I could be close to comedy by watching it. And as soon as I started watching it, I was like, oh, it's a bunch of losers talking about what losers they are. I can do this. This is great. So that was back when I was about 23. I'm 30 now. And it sort of started from there. And it's never been the same since. I love comedy. And I feel like I was sort of built for it, either personality-wise or, enthusiasm-wise. And so that's sort of kicked it off for me there. And comedy is so very self-exploratory that it's really helped me sort of develop in many sorts of ways. So I've been doing that ever since.
Oh, well, let's get into that for a second, if you don't mind. When you say comedy is self-exploratory, let's get into that. Tell me a little bit more about that.
Yeah, okay. Well, I guess like when you're sort of writing your jokes, writing comedy, when you first start, the first thing you've got is yourself. So you have to sort of begin at the very basics when you're starting comedy. So you look at like, okay, so what have I got about me that's wacky or different? And so you'll start isolating all of the little knickknacks about yourself. Like, okay, I'm a short person, or I'm gay, or I'm ugly, or I'm hot, and so you start looking at those little superficial initially, but all of those little bits about you that make you unique, and you start there, and you start making your jokes about it, like about those little things there. And as time progresses, comedy, the jokes you write start to grow as you get more experience, and you start to talk about your interests. So not just about like, what makes you unique, but what you think. And then you add your own personal point of view and and if you're still doing comedy at this point, you haven't given up, that's sort of how your material sort of grows and shapes your worldview and your perspective, and that's sort of unique to yourself. For me, my self-exploration sort of thing was, I guess, observing how I felt within the world, how I felt quite like an outsider, how I felt quite weird and uncomfortable in the world, and how I thought like I thought wrong in a way. So I like to make jokes about my wacky old crazy brain and all my little insecurities and little fun things like that. And comedy's great for being that self-acceptance you get from exploring yourself through comedy is really therapeutic. But it's not therapy. It's right. Just you tend to be more comfortable with your flaws when you can joke about them. So that's what I mean by self-exploratory. It's like you have to put yourself at the forefront of your jokes and be prepared for that self-deprecating humor. And that's where you begin. That's where you begin exploring your ideas and your thoughts and getting jokes out of it.
One of the things that I think that people tend to laugh at the most, the stuff that gets the strongest reaction from people in terms of comedy, is this idea that this kind of humor that you feel really bad for laughing at, you know what I mean? Like, I'm going to hell for this kind of humor tends to be the most powerful, though. It tends to have the most resonation, and it actually resonates with the most people. But at the same time, within the actual, I guess I would call it the comedy establishment or the comedy orthodoxy, these are things you're not supposed to joke about. So like, how do you square that circle? Like, what would you say about the kind of comedy that people, typically they laugh at, but at the same time they're like, holy shit, I'm going to hell for this, right? What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think that So say like we're joking about something as serious as domestic violence, right? Because say Bill Burr has got this brilliant joke about, you know, there's no reason to hit a woman.
Oh yeah.
I can name 17 right now.
Yeah.
You know, like yeah,
off the top of my head.
Yeah, off the top of my head. And it's great. And I think what we're laughing at is the infallible logic.
Yeah.
That we aren't supposed to see, which he's nailed, which he's touched on. And it's so wrong that it's so right. It's so funny. And I think we're laughing at how bad that is and how we're not supposed to find that funny, but he's so right.
What do you think is the difference between male and female comedians?
Sure. Okay. I was thinking about this earlier, and I was thinking maybe there's so many factors, man. Like, first of all, like the difference between male and female brains are different. Maybe women audience members enjoy a female on stage and enjoy what she has to say, enjoy the sort of humor that comes from a woman, and vice versa for men. All women have the capacity to make the same jokes that a dude does, but maybe their taste is different. I don't think that there really is much of a difference between the sort of comedy that a woman performs as opposed to a male comedian. I just think that there's sort of a different expectation. I do think there is an expectation put on women and men. I've felt it definitely in my early days. When I first started comedy, I think I went through about like 6 months of that angsty feeling where the audience doesn't get me, man, they're all sexist. And really I was just sort of bombing. Like I just wasn't doing well. And it's, you know, like I think that's all it was. But I think you could be so tempted to have that blame the audience thing that you can really depress yourself. You can really beat yourself down.
Playing the victim is extremely appealing for people.
Oh,
so
it's so
it's
luscious.
Like dodging responsibility. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not bombing. It's they don't get me, man, because I'm a girl and they hate me and my vagina. Like, they don't get it. Like, you could totally have that mindset and fuck yourself. But at the end of the day, you're not going to progress as a comedian. And I remember feeling that chip on my shoulder. And I remember feeling that bitterness when I had that in my head. And I told myself, like, I have to stop. I can't think like this because it's going to ruin my comedy. Mm-hmm. And it makes the audience my enemy rather than my friend. And as soon as I sort of changed that, I started to enjoy comedy again, and I lost all of that negativity. And I think what feminism likes to encourage in female comedians, or at least women doing comedy, is they encourage them to view the comedy world as that. Like their audiences are sexist, and all men think that they're crap, and that they couldn't possibly appreciate their jokes because they're a dude and they wouldn't get them. It's really negative and destructive for women in comedy, where really they shouldn't even be viewing their jokes in that certain way. Of course, all your jokes are going to be influenced by who you are, if you're a girl or a boy, but when you're telling people that audiences are sexist towards women, which is sort of what's happening, you're always going to have this really negative outlook on what you're doing, and it's going to affect your performance. And you're going to have that resistance inside. So I think that that's the problems with feminism, is that it wants to encourage women to view this predisposition to hate your comedy based on your vaginalness.
I think there is this idea that entertainment is way more important than it actually is. And not that I don't love entertainment, but I think that sometimes people treat it like it's like, this can change everything. You know, like that's that belief. Like this joke has the power to heal centuries of racial divide if I just tell it the right way. But if I do it the wrong way, it will create a fissure, the likes of which we will not be able to close for several generations. I must handle this with care. It's like, it's not a nuclear reactor. It's a joke.
Yeah. It's a joke, man. And it's like, my God, we can't be, comedians aren't police either. Like, we're not any sort of other thing than a dumb clown. Like people forget that we're just dumb clowns. We're clowns who couldn't get a normal money-making job. And the only thing we're good at is this, right? But we're not in any capacity in charge of social change or you know, public intellectual thought. We can influence it, but the jokes are jokes. They're a bunch of words in a row. And like Riley Dennis had this video about your rape jokes aren't funny, and his justification was, and you'll find this interesting, was how does he say it? Like, you know, if you're making rape jokes and there's a rapist in the audience, everyone in the audience, when they laugh, that rapist will think what I'm doing is okay.
Oh my God.
I told that on stage. I mentioned that on stage in my show, and I forgot how absurd it sounded. And when the audience laughed at that, I forgot how ridiculous it sounds. I was like, oh my God, yeah, that's doubly funny for me now.
Does Riley Dennis realize that she just told a joke about a rape joke? Like, that's meta, I know, but like, is it okay to joke about that? Because that's a ridiculous statement.
Like a joke could walk in through the door, and I don't think Riley Dennis would get it. No. Like it seems like we train jokes out of people when we feed them this bullshit. Like we train the humor out of each other when you start looking for all these problems with it. You know what? Like, and also that's the other thing. So if you are making rape jokes and your rapist is in the crowd, he'll be encouraged to rape more because everyone's laughing and they think it's cool, right? Or you can traumatize somebody by talking about rape, because, by the way, if you get triggered by a rape joke and it causes your PTSD to come up, man, isn't that like $500 worth of therapy right there taken care of? Like, I'd love it if like I got triggered like that and got to deal with my own shit. Like, it's cathartic to deal with your shit.
Yeah.
And so dealing with rape, if it comes from a joke, deal with your trauma. Like, don't like condemn somebody who doesn't intend to cause you trauma as the one who causes it. It's not the same thing.
Yeah, it's weird. Like, why are we holding the joke teller responsible for something a rapist might do? Why aren't we just holding the rapist responsible? Like, if he does anything. And also, how weird must it be to be a comedian and like, you know, suspect that there's probably a rapist in your audience?
Oh my God.
That's like listening to your jokes, and he's hoping that you'll tell one that will give him permission, because otherwise he wouldn't have done it. Otherwise, he wouldn't have done it. He was like, I'm thinking about raping somebody today, but I'm only going to do it if the comedian tells a joke about rape and everyone laughs. If they don't laugh, then I'm going to know it's wrong and I won't do it.
Yeah, exactly, because that's the rapist thing. Like, they're just dying for that bit of validation on stage. They just look at you to be like, oh, finally, rape joke. Yes. Something that I can connect with. A big old rape joke. That's what I do, gang. Like, huh, they do care.
Yeah, that guy killed with that rape joke. I'm raping somebody tonight.
Yeah.
And she's going to find it hilarious or else.
It's weird, man. It's like the trend is picked up, and the way to sell a show, or the way to make sure that it lands with the right audience, is it seems like now the pressure's on that you have to make it about this moral righteousness, and you have to like hit that target of, you know, is my comedy moral? Is it right? Is it virtuous? Is it this? And that's what I thought was, I kind of cringed when she went into the sort of rant about, you know, not shitting on women.
Yeah.
It was a big segment in
which she does on her own stuff. She did it twice.
And that's what made her comedy so great, and that's why it was so funny, was that women were enjoying it, and it was at the expense of women. And women aren't exclusive. Like, they're not allowed to be excluded from this whole pool of making jokes about people, but now it's become like unfashionable to do so. Like, women can't be made fun of anymore. Like, to shit on a woman is like wrong now. Like, and I think like that's the worst part, was sort of seeing that change, and just knowing, like, does that feel authentic to me? Like, does that seem like shoehorned in a way, just trying to appease a certain group, certain demographic who will probably watch her show? Why was it even in there?
Yeah.
It doesn't seem to be adding anything except making sure that she talks about it, and that she reassures her audience that she's still one of the good people, because she's gonna shit on women, but she wants everyone to know that she's still one of the good people. Because guess what? If you shit on women, now you're going to get attacked.
Yep.
All the time. You're going to have articles written about you. You're going to get bad reviews. And you're going to get people saying, is Eliza a real feminist? Here's 8 ways why she's not. And just have her career fucked up. So, of course, now everyone has to start pandering. Everyone has to start making sure they tick that social justice box. Otherwise, you're going to get fucked over.
Yeah.
And that's what we don't need in comedy. Comedy has to be the one place where it's like, it's just about funny, cunt. Like, it's just be funny. That's it. That should be the only job that you have to do in being a comedian, is just be funny. Like you could have a message, but man, to shoehorn one in just to appease a certain group because you feel pressured to, or because you've been encouraged to, it's going to take something away from your whole voice. And it seems like when it's forced like that, it's like, oh, come on.
I'd like to again to thank Sarah Young, all the way from Down Under.
Thank you so much.
Yep, and I want to thank you and your alien poussoir for joining us on the show today.
Yeah, nah.
And we'll see you guys on the next show.